Hi, my name is Danielle Beck, and I am from Connection Christian Church. Thanks for joining us for the study of the book of Genesis. Before we get started today, I would like to start with a word of prayer. Dear God, thank you for this opportunity to study your word. Please open our hearts and our minds so that we are ready to receive your truth today. Amen. So if you have been with us from the beginning of this study, you have read with us about God's creation and Adam and Eve and how they were made in God's image. And when sin entered the perfect world, you read about Noah and the flood when God tried to wipe away that sin. And Abraham and his wife Sarah and the promise that God made them, and their son Isaac, who was born well beyond their childbearing years, as part of that promise. And then we go on to read about Isaac and his wife Rebekah and their boys Jacob and Esau. And as you read, Jacob was the one who was the deceiver. He tricked Isaac into getting the blessing that was meant for his brother. But he changes, and we even read about where he has a wrestling match with God and asks God to bless him. And he walks away with a limp, but he walks away with a new name, Israel. And Israel had 12 sons, and those became the 12 tribes of Israel. And one of his sons, Joseph, was one of his favorites. And so Joseph has been through a lot of ups and downs. He was his father's favorite. He had visions that God revealed in his dreams, and that made his brothers jealous and envious. So much so that they threw him in a pit. Initially they were going to leave him to die, but decided instead to sell him into slavery. While in slavery, he found favor in Potiphar, the ruler. But Potiphar's wife tried to sleep with him, and when he refused, she then falsely accuses him. And so Joseph ends up in prison. But again, while in prison, he finds favor with the prison guards. And again, while in prison, God helps Jacob to interpret some more dreams. And eventually, he interprets Pharaoh's dream and predicts famine. And so he is again put in charge of all of Egypt and the food storage for Egypt. And so when famine strikes, his brothers come looking for food, and they end up getting reunited with Joseph. And Joseph moves his father and his brothers to Egypt. And so today we are actually going to be wrapping up the book of Genesis, starting in Genesis 49, verses 28 through chapter 50, verse 14. So we read today, and I encourage you to read for yourself, where Jacob, who was Joseph's father, makes the request to be buried not in Egypt, but with Abraham and Sarah and Isaac and Rebekah. His desire to be buried there expressed the faith in God's promise that that land would belong to their heirs. And Jacob does die, and Joseph mourns for months. And Jacob's body was embalmed. That was typical for Egyptians, but really unusual for nomadic shepherds, like Jacob was. Joseph has over and over proven himself to be trustworthy, and so much so that when he asks Pharaoh to let him go to bury his father in his hometown, he is allowed to go. And so as we continue in Genesis 50, chapter 15 through 21, I actually want to read some of this as we're getting into God's good purposes for Joseph. And it really speaks to me. So I'm going to read out of the ESV. So it's starting with verse 15. It says, "When Joseph's brothers saw that their father was dead, they said, 'It may be that Joseph will hate us and pay us back for all the evil we did to him.' So they sent a message to Joseph saying, 'Your father gave this command before he died. Say to Joseph, please forgive the transgressions of your brothers and their sin because they did evil to you. And now please forgive the transgression of the servants of God of your father." Joseph wept when they spoke to him. His brothers also came and fell down before him and said, "Behold, we are your servants." But Joseph said to them, "Do not fear, for I am in the place of God. As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive, as they are today. So do not fear. I will provide for you and for your little ones." Thus he confronted them and spoke kindly to them. So now that Jacob is dead, Joseph's brothers began to worry that Joseph is going to pay them back for all of the evil things they did to him. But instead of asking for forgiveness, they say that before their father died, he asked Joseph to forgive them. But we find out that they didn't have to worry at all, because Joseph had already forgiven them. Joseph could see how God used their evil to save a lot of people, including their whole family. Joseph's faith in God is an example for us all. Even when someone does something bad to us, God can use it to make our lives better. So, do you trust God enough to wait patiently for Him to bring good out of bad situations? What was God doing through Joseph's deeds of suffering? What was God doing through Joseph's decades of suffering and the betrayal of his family? Well, He was refining Joseph. He was restoring Joseph to his family. God intended Joseph's life to save many lives. And it seems that Joseph understood this, because this is what he said to his brothers. Again, Genesis chapter 50, verse 20. "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring it about that many people should be kept alive as they are today." And God makes us the same promise today as believers. We see that in Romans chapter 8, verse 28. It says, "And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to His purpose." So before we go, I would love to pray for you again. Dear God, thank you for all you have taught us during this study about you and your love for us. You have given us great examples of faith, and I pray we too will grow in our faith, that you have shown how you keep your promises, and that you will continue to keep your promises. You have shown us many men and women that are important parts of your plan. Help us also to see the part that we have in your plan today. I pray that we can live today and every day knowing that you are with us, God. Amen. Thank you so much for studying the book of Genesis with us. I hope you will join us again for the future study or Sunday mornings for worship. Bye.